It's Authors Night here at the Calabasas Library. Our guest today is Tonilyn Hornung and her book, How to Raise a Husband. A whole bunch of ways to build a strong and happy marriage. And I was looking at some of this research I did, Tonilyn, and you're very busy. You're a very busy lady.
Thanks, I try.
You have a husband, 2 dogs, a cat, a baby, well, a toddler now.
A toddler now, yeah.
And is there anything else I'm missing?
No, that's it. I think you got it all.
And you won an award. You were the winner for Outstanding Fiction at the Southern California Writers Conference.
Yeah.
And you look so young and you've done so much.
Thanks.
Very
It's good
impressive.
genes.
Very impressive. When did you start writing?
I started writing kind of full-time officially about, 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. I had always written here and there as a kid. I wrote short stories. Like while kids were out playing, I was inside writing. So it's always been something that I really like to do, but it was never anything that I considered as a full-time profession or felt really moved to do up until about 8 years ago. And I really just started focusing on doing that and started writing short essays and blogging. And then the idea for this book came about, and that kind of started everything.
How did you get the idea for this book? Not that it shouldn't have been written long before now.
Thank you. I was, although my husband provides me with really fabulous material, it was actually a friend of mine, a girlfriend of mine, who inspired me. We were having lunch together, and she was talking about how she had a toddler at the time, and she asked her husband to watch their toddler, and they were sitting on the couch, and she went to the bathroom, and she came back, and her husband was watching TV, and the toddler was about to toddle off of the couch. And she was telling me this story.
I understand that scenario.
Yes, telling me this story, and I left lunch with her and thought, wow, not only does she have to raise her kid, but she has to raise her husband. And then a couple of days later, the title for this book popped into my head, and I thought, wow, that's a great title. Somebody should really write a book about that. And then a couple days later, I thought, I could write a book about that, and that's how that started.
Well, if I wish I had it 40 years ago. I mean, my husband could say, and we did this, and we did this when we raised our children. I figure, who's we?
Yeah.
He's out of town.
Sure, and you're
I'm
home.
doing it. Or he's in town, and I come back after a whole day if he's watching the kids, and no diaper's been changed, no food has gone into his mouth. What is this raising?
Yeah.
They really, I'm going to get hate mail. These men need to be trained in a very positive ways, like how to nag, how to get what you want
positively
without being a real B word.
It's true. And this book, one thing I really love about this book is, yes, the title is How to Raise a Husband, and my husband actually thinks it's hysterical, so that's great. But it's really about how we raise each other in relationships. So what are my husband's good points that help me? What are my good points that help him? So it's really about a give and take like that too. So, and that's, again, one of the things that I really like.
How to word things, how to make it seem as if it's almost their idea.
That does help. I have noticed that. Yeah, that's been a more recent development, because a lot of times I would suggest things flat out and that just didn't fly, and then I would make a more subtle approach, and then it worked a little bit better. So that is one thing I have learned.
But you have to keep changing the approaches. Or it's a nag. Or
yeah,
they realize
you don't want to
nagging.
nag. I mean, I don't ever like to feel like a nag. And
well,
I joke
do.
with I joke with my husband that I'm not nagging, I'm just right. So there is a difference,
And the honey-do list just gets tossed.
The honey-do, yes, it certainly does sometimes. And it's interesting having a baby now. Well, bringing children into it changes the dynamic completely. So we're trying to re-find our footing right now, which has been very interesting.
I mean, the book reads like a sitcom.
Well, thank you. I'll take it as a compliment. Yeah, I really wanted to write something that was palatable and something that was fun and easy to read, but also gave you more insight into a person's marriage and what the stories are told from the point of view of the wife, what the wives in the story are really feeling and what's really going on underneath some of the superficial banter that's happening. And I was lucky enough to interview 5 really honest, really great women. My stories are included, and they really couldn't have been more honest and raw with how they revealed what goes on in their relationship. And I was really, really thrilled to be able to work with all of them on this.
So actually, it's a book for not just people who are married, people who are dating, people who have a relationship or are looking to do that.
Absolutely. And even people ask me, should men read this book?
Absolutely.
And my response is, one of the things I hear from my husband or from other men, they really just do not understand how women think. If you want to know how a woman thinks, this is the book to read. Because, again, they're told from the woman's point of view, and we really go into great depth trying to get behind a lot of this stuff and really analyze how we're feeling, how we're thinking, taking responsibility for our part in the relationship, and then hopefully inspiring our husband to change along with us. So yeah, I'd say it's a book for everybody.
You must have enjoyed writing a book
I really
like this.
did. I really did. Yeah, it was a really fun process, and like I said, I got to talk to really great women on the phone for long periods of time, and then send them the stories to see how accurate they were, because I wanted to keep them, like, some details have been changed, but I wanted to make sure that the crux of the story remained honest. So there was a lot of back and forth with them, which was really fun.
How long did it take you to write the book?
Once I really sat down and really wrote, it took me 8 months to finish.
That's not bad.
Not bad. I didn't write every day, I wrote most every day. And I figured out that, I have friends that are writers and they can write 8 hours a day, and wow, I'm impressed by that. I could not. So I wrote 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon.
That's diligent.
And, thanks. And, and I found what was really fun was that a lot of times some of my best ideas for how to progress the story came when I wasn't even writing. I was in the shower, or I was walking the dogs, or just making dinner, which is a rarity, but sometimes I do. But, just doing some other task other than actually just sitting there and trying to work it out.
Well, this is a fun book. It must have been enjoyable to have the experience of writing it also, not only it just being a successful book, but having the pleasure of writing something that pleases you.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. That's when I first started writing, one of the things I was doing was writing what I thought other people might want to read. And when I started writing, honestly, to amuse myself, my writing really became very different, and I think much more honest and hopefully a little more funny. So I wrote to amuse myself a little bit, and then I would have my husband proofread, and I wrote to amuse him. So if the two of us thought it was funny, then we hoped that everybody else did as well.
Is this your first book?
It is, yeah.
Do you have another one that you're planning?
I'm planning on writing a book similar to this. I won't interview other people, it'll just be my stories, but it'll be more about my relationship with my husband now that we have a baby, and my relationship with my baby, again, in a funny, humorous way.
What is your background?
My background is in theater.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I grew up a singer, a musical theater performer, and
performer?
Musical theater.
Really?
Yeah. I was a singer first, and then did theater, and went to college for musical theater.
Where was that?
I went to Boston Conservatory. So,
okay.
Yeah,
yes,
again,
familiar.
Musical theater. And I performed and did that for a really long time, and I still do that, actually, occasionally. But
where do you do it?
Around town. I'd also do voiceover work, so I do commercials and things like that too. So I try to stay active that way, because that was my first home and my first love. But writing has just been so great, because it's been on my terms and I can do it at my own time.
And you live locally?
And I do, yeah. My husband and I live in Northridge, so not too far.
That's local?
Yeah.
Okay, so so you're not going to be interviewing other people for your next book. You're going to do it strictly from your own point of view.
Strictly from my own point of view, yeah. I'm really excited about that, because this was different. Writing, this was written in first person from using different wives, different women's stories. So I had to put myself in their position and tell their stories for them. But this way, I get to just write for myself and write my own stories. Which,
how did you find these other women?
I thought about women that I knew and women that I felt had a very strong, committed marriage. Okay. Women that really wanted to be very self-aware and wanted to continue their marriage, their growth in their marriage, and so I interviewed women that I really thought just had a really strong commitment to growth in their marriage, and they were more than happy to talk to me, which was great.
And they're all still married?
Yep, they're all still married.
When I first got married, we had all these friends, And after a few years, we were the only ones still married.
Oh, wow.
It's very, very scary for me to see this.
I bet, and it seems like things happen like that around the same time. Like everybody gets married at the same time, everybody has babies around the same time, and then people start getting divorced.
Everyone splits up at the same time.
Which must have been very odd.
It was for me.
I can only imagine, yeah.
I mean, it's not so much what am I doing right, but what's going on around me. Is this a contagion?
Yeah. And
of course, it was in the 60s, so that was kind of a swinging area. It was a very loose moral time.
And that's when everybody started changing partners.
Yes, 60s and early 70s. I don't know that's what happened. Nobody will tell you the truth what happened in their marriage.
Sure. Well, again,
or they'll blame the other person, and it's as a matter of course. So this way you see insight into people who have been successful. That must have been very encouraging for you.
It was. I was so happy to talk to all of these women, because what was also great is when they would tell me certain stories, they were never exactly like my own experience, but they certainly reflected that. So I didn't feel so crazy sometimes when I get mad about little things, or we have a very strange fight about who didn't close the drawer with the silverware. Everybody kind of has their own little thing that's similar. So it made me feel like, oh, wow, this is cool. You know, people kind of go through the same stuff all the time. And those are things that, you're right, people don't actually talk about all the time.
I needed a book like that because I didn't know where to go, who to turn to, who to talk to.
Sure, and a lot of people, you know, don't want to talk to people about it because they don't want to come across, they don't want to be embarrassed, or they don't want to be that vulnerable. And so reading a book with all sorts of other stories privately is also a nice way to connect with other people that way.
We didn't have the internet there to see.
That's true too. You couldn't Google it.
Now, this is not your usual kind of relationship book, I notice. I mean, it's...
No, it's definitely not.
It's almost like mediation, dispute resolution, which I think is very, very important in any marriage, any relationship, any business. And it's for women of all ages, actually.
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
It should be handed out in a pre-marriage text for anyone that goes to get a marriage license. Well, yes, you're going to have your license, and you know, take this book along with you. What is Skirt Magazine? And you're oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Skirt Magazine sadly just last year closed their virtual doors. Skirt Magazine was a wonderful, wonderful community of women bloggers. And they also had a print magazine as well. And that was really how I got started writing. I decided to become a blogger. You had to apply to blog, and then if you were accepted, you had to blog at least twice a week. Sometimes once a week was acceptable. And it scared me to death, and I was afraid there was no way I was going to be able to come up with something 2 times a week. Even once a week for a long period of time is a challenge. But I did, and it really I really was able to hone my writing style in a safe environment, and everybody was so supportive, and the women bloggers there were great. But last year, I'm not exactly sure what happened, but I think they got bought out by somebody and then just kind of phased out their bloggers.
Do you still blog?
I do. I blog from my own website now, maybe about once a month or so. And
I see down here you blog for Pregnancy and Newborn magazine at one time?
I did, yeah. When they kicked me out once my baby was not a newborn, so that was unfortunate. But yeah, because I had a great time. But once I blogged for the whole first year of his life, which was really super fun, and I was slightly relieved when it was done, because then I could have more time with focusing on the baby and not trying to think up fun things to write. But then I realized, wow, that's too bad, because I have like a whole year's log of stuff that happened with the two of us, and now I'm a little more lazy and don't write as often because I choose to sleep instead.
Well, during our next segment here, we're going to talk about some of these stories.
Oh, great.
Because
okay.
I know the audience will love to hear them. I enjoyed reading about them. So audience, please stay with us for a short intermission and come back for How to Raise a Husband.
Wake the sun, tell him that I've begun. peace of mind. Wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun, wake the sun.
Tonilyn Hornung,
Yes.
our guest, Author's Night, and the book, How to Raise a Husband. Like to go into the thrill of the chase.
Okay.
That's always somehow what starts a relationship. The chase begins.
It's true. It's true. And in this particular instance, this story is one of mine. And this happened when my husband and I were just dating. And although it still happens now, I have to say. But I just could never understand why my husband honestly didn't come when I call, or my boyfriend at the time. I would yell down the hall, I would ask him what he was doing, and then there was just no
They don't hear
response.
you. They don't see you.
But the joke was that I could hear, I at the time he lived in a house with roommates, and I could be talking to his roommates about the Dallas Cowboys, which is his favorite football team, or Star Wars, which is something that we love. But he could hear that somehow and come out and be like, what are you guys talking about? But when I actually yelled or called, or, called nicely, he was at the computer, or he was doing something that he couldn't stop.
He was busy.
He was busy, and it really, after a while, just hurt my feelings, because I thought, when you call for me, when you ask me to come, then
They expect,
I
like,
come.
right away.
So, yeah, and I did, because I knew that was important to him. And finally, I asked him about it and was like, why don't you come when I ask for you to call? And that was I'm busy, or I have stuff to do. And I realized when he was talking, even though it wasn't the best answer, or an answer that I really had hoped for, he really just, it didn't mean as much to him as it did to me. And I realized that he wasn't trying to hurt my feelings. He wasn't trying to be mean. And I just became a little more creative in my calling. So
How?
I would say things like, hey, honey, Star Wars is on. And he would magically appear. And then I could continue talking about what I really wanted to talk about. So I led the conversation with something that was interesting to him. And then I finished up with something that was interesting to me.
Quite clever.
Thank you.
Quite clever.
Thanks. I try.
Now, another thing that stood out to me was the importance of knowing how and when to be the listener to them.
Yes, that's a tough one, because, and I think you're talking about I think it's the third story in the first section. That is a real tough one, because a lot of times, especially in this particular story, the wife in that story feels like, and you know what, she very well feels like she can contribute a solution to what's going on, to the conflict that's happening, and her husband doesn't want to hear the solution, he just wants her to listen. And that's really hard for her, because she wants to fix it and she wants him to feel better.
They just want to vent.
And exactly, he kept saying, you're not listening, and she kept saying, well, I am, and thinking I am listening because I'm responding to you and I'm trying to help you with what's going on. But that's not what he wanted at that time. He did not want a solution. He did not want to re-talk about everything that had happened in this particular conflict. He just wanted her to listen. And so when she realized that and just took a step back and took a deep breath and just let him talk and didn't say anything, the tension between the two of them just abated, and everything became much more clear and much more calm. And once he had vented and once he had given up what he really needed to say, then he was ready to talk with her about it. So that can be tricky, because a lot of times you both want to get your point across and make sure that you're heard. But sometimes it's better to just take a step back and listen and see what's going on, and then offer advice or not. Again, you're right. Sometimes husbands and wives just need to vent. They don't need a solution. They just want to get off their chest what's bothering them.
But how do you get a man to listen to you when you want to vent and he doesn't think it's important enough, or he can solve it within 5 seconds, or get over it, or
That is a
you'll
tough
survive?
one. Honestly, I'm still working on that one too. But, I found that when I say to my husband, this is really important to me, I really need for you to listen, and can get that connection with him, then he will stop and he will take the time and he will listen. But there's a difference, I think, between just kind of venting and talking about your day and really needing to connect with your partner.
There is a difference.
Share what's really
you have to
bothering
learn what's
you.
really important to you.
Yeah.
You can pick up a phone, call your girlfriend,
Sure.
and go into what happened to you. They don't really care. But you're right. You have to make it a point. This is important to me.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes I think on both sides, you are consumed with your day or whatever, you're not as connected with your partner, and then you think, oh, they're just talking about their day, they're really okay. You don't really connect with the fact that, oh, this is a really big deal, I really do need to sit down and listen. So yeah, that's, I think, works for us, taking that moment to be like, hey, this is really important to me and I really just want you to listen for a little bit. Makes a huge difference.
Ask their advice. They love to give advice. Oh, you who know everything. How long have you been married?
10 years this year.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
Okay. How do you test the staying power of a relationship before marriage? How do you know this is really the keeper?
You know, that's a really good question. The beginning first section of this book kind of talks about that. It's all about the wives and their husbands while they were dating before they got married. And one of the things I think holds true with everybody, including myself, is if you could move through the little annoying trials and then the bigger trials of the relationship and see how you get along with those, see how you interact with things like that, and it works for you, then I think you can begin to think, oh, okay, well, this could work for the long haul. This could be a good idea.
I hear you use the noun child.
Yes?
As in a grown man being like a child. Is that how you meant it? I don't disagree.
No, I don't think. I don't. Did I use the word child? Oh my goodness, my baby brain has gone nuts. I don't think that men are necessarily children or childlike. I think everybody has certain things that they need to work on, myself included. So, again, like I said, the title is supposed to be funny, but it's really about both partners taking responsibility. And sometimes it falls to the wife to take responsibility first, because sometimes we happen to be the more self-aware of the two.
Very
And
good euphemism for
sometimes-
saying usually.
And sometimes there are a bunch of stories in this book as well where the husband kind of cues the wife to take responsibility. So it really just depends on where you are in your relationship and where you are in the conflict or the dynamic. But yeah, I think that everybody needs a little raisin here and there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were all kind of children. I mean, we grow older, but we still feel inside the way we did when we were much, much younger.
Oh, sure. I am amazed to find I still have reactions to things that I can think, oh, I used to feel that way about that when I was like 6. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it still happens. And now having a child and seeing how he reacts to things, it's funny. I can put myself in his position and re-experience that. And I've read somewhere, I think it was a female blogger said that when she had her children, she didn't realize that having her children would help her heal her own childhood wounds. And I can see that as he gets older.
When you have a child, it's like starting your life all over again.
Yeah.
With each child. You start
It's pretty
becoming the
incredible.
adult.
I'm really surprised by that. So again, why I want to write about it, because it was a shock, a good shock, but definitely a shock.
Okay, what else did I really enjoy? Oh, an imperfect match. How to deal with a competitive boyfriend and not let him win all the time.
Yeah.
How to bolster their self-confidence but not pad their ego, I guess is what it's saying.
Yeah, this particular...
Especially sports.
Yeah, this particular story was actually one of my favorites to write. But it's about the husband and wife, but they're dating at this point, and this is pretty early in their relationship. And the husband is not really very sporty. He's more of a brainy kind of guy. And his girlfriend, his future wife, is kind of a sporty girl. She likes to go out and play with the boys and, hang out and play football and stuff like that. And he's not really an outdoor kind of guy. So, but he does play tennis. So he offers to play tennis with her. And she thinks, oh, this is awesome. This will be how we bond this way. And this will be something that we can really do together. And it'll be super great and fun. And she goes, and she's never played tennis before, but she figures, he'll teach her, and he's super patient and super nice. And he gets on the tennis court, and something happens. Something changes. He becomes very impatient. He becomes very competitive. She has never seen this side of him ever.
He's scared of her.
Yeah, maybe. Well, that's funny because towards the end, she starts playing tennis, but not like she's not holding the racket right. And he's like, "Well, you can't play if you don't hold it that way." And she's like, "Well, I'm hitting the balls. What difference does it make?" But she starts winning, even though she's doing things a little wrong, and that is very frustrating to him. And so he gets even more frustrated with her that she's not doing things right, she's not playing it right. But then he's missing balls that she's hitting, and this is the first time they've ever played tennis together. And she is not having fun at all, and she just decides, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And he is kind of baffled. He really just did not understand why she wasn't having any fun, why she wanted to quit. She's like, you know what, I'm done. And she leaves, and they kind of talk about it a little later. But she just realizes that if she wants to be in a relationship with him, then perhaps she needs to go be sporty with her girlfriends and some other friends, and then do the things that they do well together. And they have never played tennis since, and that is 42 years later.
Well, I was an avid skier.
Oh, yeah.
And I went skiing with the person who ultimately became my husband. Mm-hmm. Well, what a horrifying skier. I mean, I was sitting at the bottom of the hill waiting.
Oh, you sound like me and my husband, except flip-flopped, because my husband is a fabulous skier, and I'm like, can you come get me?
And
yeah.
I figured, this cannot go on. I mean, I love the sport.
Yeah.
I don't mind doing a run, but in skiing, you should ski with someone a little bit better than you, has a little edge on you, so you can improve.
Sure, or at least keep up and
keep up and have a wonderful time. Yeah. So we sort of ski different runs, things like that. It was not going to be a competition. Mm. And everyone was happy, but I don't ski anymore. So you know what happened at the end of that story.
Yeah.
Okay, role playing. Oh, how to get your husband to move boxes. Get these things done that have been accumulating for years.
Yeah.
Other than having a wedding at your house or having their family come over from another area, then they'll clean up everything.
You're absolutely right. That's very funny. Yeah.
But if you want something done, how does it get moved? How does it get accomplished?
This particular story, well, it's funny you say that because that's true. When my husband's parents come to visit, the house is immaculate. And when my parents come to visit, then I'm the one that cleans. So I just kind of figured, hey, it's his family. He can clean. It's my family. I'll clean. We'll do it that way. But this one is about how in our marriage, I really wanted things to be 50-50, to be very equal. So I didn't want things to be like, I'm the woman, I'm going to go cook, and you're the guy, you have to go take out the garbage. I didn't want it to be that stereotypical. And when we got married, that started happening. Like I started being the person in the kitchen, and he started being the guy that did take out the garbage and dealt with all the things outside and trimming the trees and stuff like that. And again, when I got married, I pictured us at least doing it together, like being in the kitchen cooking together or trimming trees together.
I see that in the movies all the time.
Yeah, see, maybe that's where I got the idea. But that just didn't happen. And then I started saying things that were very kind of male stereotypical gender stuff, like, can you take my car in to get the oil changed? The guys deal with cars, girls don't deal with cars. And then he would say things like, when you go to the grocery, can you pick up? So it kind of went into that area. And when I realized it, I was a little freaked out because that was not really what I wanted to have happen. So the joke in the story is that I want my husband to feel like he can be anything, including the woman of the house. So I want him to feel like he can cook and I can go take out the trash. I just didn't want it to be that kind of marriage where it falls into roles like that. I wanted them to be freer to be defined and to move in and out of them instead of this is what you do, this is what I do.
Well, who cooks in your house now?
Now we do a lot of takeout. So since we both hate cooking, and with the baby, we do a lot of takeout.
It's hard to do everything.
It is. It is.
The more you do everything, the more you feel martyred, and the more difficult it is.
And the more resentment builds, and
yes.
then then it just yeah, it can get hard that way. So so you have to find stuff that works. And since we both hate cooking, we both like to eat out. It works.
Well, let's come back after a short intermission and some further tips on how to raise that husband of yours.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Tonilyn Hornung and the book, How to Raise a Husband. Well, I think we're doing pretty good here. Oh, picking up their toys, messy, cluttered garage. The best thing is to throw it every in one room.
That's kind of what I feel like a lot of wives do, especially the ones I talk to. Like my husband has his office, all of his stuff in his office. Yeah, and in this particular story that you're talking about, a lot of his stuff in the garage, but he didn't.
The garage is for their works of art and other things they collect.
Yes, and they came to a compromise. So instead of just having things haphazardly collected on the floor or counters, they bought shelves and prominently displayed some of the nicer things, and then some of it moved elsewhere.
You can divide up. You take the den, I'll take the bedroom, and you can have your room.
Yeah.
And get everything up there. Oh, the one I like the best is dealing with a mother-in-law.
That's a tick.
Along with family recipes. The woman is never known for being a real good cook or as a splendid cook, but the recipes, when you taste them, aren't as good as they remember them to be.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the one you're talking about now, there are two stories in here that deal with mother-in-law, but the one about the cake I can freely talk about because it's mine. And my husband has this cake that he loves and was baked for him almost every birthday.
Bunny birthday cake in our house. Bunny
that's funny.
birthday cake.
And I have I think that's great. I think it's wonderful that his mother baked him a cake. I think it's wonderful that he has that tradition. I think that's great. I just don't want to be the one to have to cook it.
And besides, you won't be taught correctly either.
No, and
Again, we've established, so it won't be as good as mine.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be, and we've really clearly established that I don't cook, and I am a horrible cook. So the one time that she showed me how to cook it, I was a nervous wreck because, quite honestly, I have never baked anything before or since. So
I love baking.
Yeah. I will
bake.
come to your house because no bacon happens at all.
But I won't make bunny birthday cake, and I won't make the cream custard pie with the graham cracker crust.
Oh, wow. Is that one of your husband's
That's
family's
his
things?
favorite. When he goes back east,
Yeah.
his brother and sister-in-law always make it for him.
Oh, well, see, at least he has
He
somebody
gets
to make
it,
it.
and I
yes.
can't compete. It's not going to be as good as
Well, no, they've had so much
the memory.
practice. Yeah.
and tradition and the whole feeling has to be done in the New Jersey
Yeah.
or New York.
Well, the water's better there.
The
it's
water
totally
is
different. Yeah.
It is different.
Yeah.
But mother-in-laws, that's a lesson for mother-in-law, not to get involved.
That is a really, it's a really tricky thing, I think. And now having a son, even though he's super little, I can sympathize a little bit more because I can see where you're just such a part of their life. You want to continue that, but at some points now, being a wife and my mother-in-law has been great, so I don't.
You're very fortunate.
So yeah.
Is she local?
She is not.
Ah,
so there's that. But yeah, there's a story in here with a very kind of overbearing mother-in-law, and that dynamic can be really, really tricky. I mean, one of the things that the old sitcom Everybody Loves Raymond, I loved watching that because the mother-in-law was so just crazy and just, yeah, overbearing and in everybody's business. And the reason that stereotype is there is because it happens.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And that's a lesson to learn from the book, not to become something like that. Put yourself in the middle of a husband and his wife.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's a tricky dynamic because the husband oftentimes has a problem or is uncomfortable saying something to his mom because that's his mom. So it's really hard to, you know.
You can't say anything. They'll
Yeah,
World
and
War
then
III.
the wife feels like, but you're my husband and this is your mother, so why don't you say something? And then, yeah, things get very muddy and can be kind of tricky.
Okay, now what about writing lists and making maps? Like a birthday, what you really want for a birthday gift or something like that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, there's a story in there about Valentine's Day. This is actually one of my favorite stories because I think the wife is genius. This is when they were dating, and it was their first Valentine's Day together. They had been in a long-distance relationship, and they were finally in the same place. And she was so excited because it was the most romantic holiday, and you know, she knew her boyfriend had proven himself time and again to be very thoughtful, to be very romantic from a distance. He would send her really great letters and really fun little puns, and so she thought, oh, he is going to do it up this year because we are together. And he walked into her apartment and said, "Happy Valentine's Day, what do you want to do?" And she was heartbroken.
Devastated.
Because
I remember that
yeah,
story.
he clearly didn't mean it to be mean. He wasn't doing it, you know, to try to start something. He just didn't know. He just didn't get it. And so they talked about it then, and he began to understand, you know, that, okay, I'm sorry I screwed up and this meant a lot to you. So she thought, okay, next year will be better. And then as that started to approach, he started getting kind of weird and asking things like, so what do you want to do? And what would you like to have? And her whole point was, but
Think
I
of
want you to
something.
do something for me. And she began to realize that he just was so paralyzed because he could not figure out what to do to help her, that she decided to give him a little extra help. So now, and they still do this, and I think they've been married now close to 15 years, they have Valentine's Day themes. So she sets a theme, like
Very
a
clever.
chocolate theme or a pajama theme, and he works within those parameters.
Jewelry thing.
Exactly, that would be my theme every year, to try to get her a gift along those lines, so he doesn't have to feel so much pressure and feel like he just doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know what to get her, and it's actually worked out to be more creative because working within those parameters frees him up to be funny and to give her thoughtful things, and they really have a great time on Valentine's Day now. And I just thought, wow, that is I never would have thought of that solution, and I thought it was great.
Like you can't wait for them to remember your birthday.
Not all the time. Well, my
you
birthday
have to
I
say
announced from
on
the
my
hills, but
birthday,
yeah.
or when it comes up, what do you think about? Say, oh, heads up, it's her birthday.
Yeah.
And not sit there and wait and have them forget.
Yeah, no, and like I said, my birthday, people think it's a national holiday because I shout it from the rooftops. So
Good.
my husband would never, he's going to laugh when he hears this, he would never forget it. Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
Well, you know, you got to do what you got to do.
Okay. Here's the one I really liked. Other than every man needs to be worshipped, which by spouse, by the pets and the kids, is seeing things through the eyes of your husband. So many people say to me, I don't know why he's upset, I don't know why she's upset, I don't know, my friend does this. I try to treat them the way I would like to be treated.
Yeah.
But you should treat them the way you think they would like to be treated.
That's
See
very
it
true.
through their eyes. See things through the eyes of your husband. I found that a very profound chapter.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. There are a couple chapters that definitely deal with that. And one is actually about cleaning, but there's another one where a more poignant story where the husband and the wife, they're both actors, and opening nights are really, really important to him.
Oh, yeah.
And she doesn't go because she has a show. She can have an understudy come in, but she just thought they're not important to her. So she thought, well, it's not that big of a deal because it's not that important to him. And it ended up being very important to him. And she missed all the signals, and That was part of the miscommunication. He never flat out
He
said,
never explained it to
please
her,
come to
yeah.
my opening night. He just assumed that she would, and when she didn't, he was really upset. But again, never flat out said, I'm really upset with you because you didn't come to my opening night. So through this talking, and this is the same wife that knows that her husband needs to be heard for a while, so she stepped back, she listened to him talk, realized that that was the problem, and realized, you know what, I didn't see it that way, because that's not how I view it. So I understand now that this is really important to you. And I think that what you're saying is absolutely true. Trying to see things from another person's point of view makes a huge difference in any relationship, but especially one where you're living with the other person day in and day out. And you feel more connected when you make that jump, and you feel more loved and cared for by your spouse when somebody tries to see something from your perspective. And one of the things about this book, I never try to, it actually says on there, it's 100% nag-free. There's no man bashing. There's no like women rule and men are horrible. It's really about what you're saying, trying to see things from the other person's point of view and trying to foster that connection and that deep love within your relationship and with your spouse so that your relationship can continue to grow.
Did you ever read or see the movie Rashomon?
No.
The Japanese I can't pronounce the name, so I won't even try it and embarrass myself. I can see it written, but I'm not going to pronounce it. It's a story on a rural road. It was made into an American film with Clint Eastwood later, but I saw the Japanese version. And it's a man in rural Japan with his wife. They're peasants. They're walking along a road. And there's a robbery. And the wife gets hurt, and all sorts of things happen that are very disagreeable to the couple. And then you see it again through the husband's eyes.
Oh,
only.
Interesting.
Then you see the whole scenario through the woman's eyes.
That's really
Then
cool.
you see it through the robber's
wow.
eyes, and most objective of all, the eyes of a bystander.
That's really great.
And I have a friend who's an attorney who always makes his new associates see that movie because they're going to be dealing in different perspectives in a law case. And when I was training real estate agents, I would show that as well, so that you will know what you see and what you feel and what you almost divine from what has gone on may be totally different from what the other person sees.
Yeah, that's really great.
So that's what this book shows to me. It's a lighter, entertaining version of seeing perspectives, how other people feel for the same situation.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
how
yeah.
important it is, and how much I enjoyed it.
Well, thank
and
you.
how much I thank you for coming today.
Of course, thank you so much.
And I can't wait to read your new book when it comes out, and let me have one.
I definitely
A
will.
copy of it. And I'll leave with the words for our TV audience regarding man and men and what they're like. And it was said, not by me, but by a gentleman called Douglas McGregor, who said, man is a wanting animal, and as soon as one of his needs is satisfied, another appears in its place. And so it continues from birth to death. So with a copy of this book that you can get in our library, it'll make that journey a lot easier for everyone. Thank you very much for being with Authors Night. Thank you, Media Operations Department. Thank you, City of Calabasas. And thank you, our delightful author.
Thank you.